This is really interesting. I talked about this yesterday on my show, Ben Garcia show, and I thought it was interesting. There was a report that there was a disconnect between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And here's why there's a disconnect. Nick Sirianni is a man child. He's emotional. He emotes. He acts like a literal child, screaming at Chiefs fans after a Monday Night Football win in which, congrats, Marquez Valdez-Scantling can't catch the football. Or in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, he's taunting the other team, and Jalen Hurts has to be the adult. Nick Sirianni was clearly propped up by Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. I'm not buying the Philadelphia Eagles hype this year. I'm simply not buying it. A lot of issues in the back end of their defense last year in the secondary. And they decide with their limited resources, we're going to throw tens of millions of dollars at Saquon Barkley, a running back statistically who's not that much different from DeAndre Swift last year. They lose Jason Kelce on the offensive line. Who knows how that's going to affect the tush push? And then they say, you know what? We're going to attack the secondary by putting rookies back there. If there's a learning curve for any position in the NFL, from college to pros, it's secondary, cornerbacks, safeties. I don't expect it to be much better. I absolutely do not approve of them giving Nick Sirianni another shot with new coordinators. The Philadelphia Eagles, to me, are a team that may make the playoffs simply because of talent alone, just like last year. They're not a Super Bowl team to me. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's an adult. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. And when you compound the injuries that really just humbled him last year into the effect that it really hurt him on the back end, not being able to scramble out. If he's not a two-dimensional player, then he's really nothing at all, meaning he really relies on that running game to get that, open up some passing lanes, get some cornerbacks, get some safeties to bite, because he's not a precise passer. That is, I feel like, indisputable. So this Philadelphia Eagles team, I know you're a Cowboy fan, and it's hard to be unbiased, but I trust your judgment here. Am I insane for saying this team may not be a playoff team this year? And if they are, it'll be off of talent alone. But is this basically the beginning of the end for Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles, like I believe it is, because they've allocated their resources to the running back position and not to the position that basically cost them multiple games last year because James Bradbury can't cover anyone?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. You know, I look at this Eagles team and look, I get that I'm a Cowboys fan. I cover the Cowboys, but I try to look at things from an unbiased perspective. I think I agree with you with Jalen Hurts. I think he's a fine quarterback. I look at A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, one of the best duos in the league. Dallas Goedert, very, very good tight end. Their offensive line, they got some nice pieces on that offensive line. It's not as good as it once was, but it's still a very good unit. Saquon Barkley, he's a really good running back. But, you know, we all saw this team was very talented last year. Talent was not the problem. It's what they had at the coaching staff. Nick Sirianni should not be employed. And by the way, I've been critical of Howie Roseman, not because I don't think he's a really good GM. I think he is, but I don't think people cover him in a fair manner. I think they kind of just look past some of the bad things that he's done, like the fact that he's fired, 3 coaches now? It's Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, Doug Peterson. He's on his 4th coach. I think part of the reason why Nick Sirianni is still there is because Howie Roseman didn't want to be the general manager that fired 4 head coaches. General managers do not survive that. They don't survive some of the draft misses that they had over the past few years that nobody wants to criticize him for. Nobody criticizes him, it seems like, anymore for the Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson thing because, they got A.J. Brown. Okay, they got A.J. Brown, but they spent a first-round pick to go get him, and they spent money to acquire him as well, which, hey, that first-round pick could have been used somewhere else to maybe improve your defense that wasn't very good last year. The Jordan Davis thing, drafting Jordan Davis over Kyle Hamilton, who is clearly the superior player, he doesn't get criticized for that. He doesn't get criticized for drafting Nolan Smith over Joey Porter Jr. when their secondary last year was terrible and their pass rush was perfectly fine going into the season. They had plenty of guys at the at defensive end that they could have relied on, but they drafted a defensive end that they didn't need that year over a cornerback that it looked like, hey, he would have been better than James Bradbury, way better than them. I don't love the roster construction here. It's very heavy on one side of the football to where I look at their defense. I don't think their run defense is going to be good. And I don't think their pass rush is going to be good either. I mean, who do they have rushing the passer? Jalen Carter, who I think is going to have a big year this year. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. But other than that, like Josh Sweat is good, but I'm not afraid to play Josh Sweat. Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. Like I'm just not impressed by what they have rushing the passer. I think Jordan Davis is completely overrated. I don't think their linebackers are good at all. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship, I think they're both overrated as well. They're good players, like solid players.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wasn't great for the Lions last year, and he's expected to fix their secondary.
And he's injury prone too. And then I feel like with their cornerbacks, they're mixing, older players with young players, and that's, it's good for the long-term health of the younger players when it comes to their development. But if that's your plan, it's not necessarily a great plan of attack due to the fact that I would argue they don't have anybody in their prime on their defense right now, and especially in their secondary. I don't think they have anybody in their prime. Darius Slay's starting to lose a step, especially at a position like cornerback, where that's a young man's position. So I have the same concerns about the Philadelphia Eagles. I think people are looking at their roster and they're seeing the big names and they're seeing the draft type that this team has. But I think that they have problems with their coaching staff when it comes to Nick Sirianni. We'll see what happens with Fangio, who, by the way, a lot of those Dolphin players did not like him at all. And Kellen Moore, I think Kellen Moore's fine, but at the same time, his offense takes a little bit to get used to. It's a very complex offense. Will Greer said it. He said, man, this is the most complex offense I've ever been in my life.
It is. Sorry, continue.
When I was watching film during the 21 and 22 seasons for the Cowboys, one thing I said is this is complex for the offense and simple for the defense. It's not a lot of creative concepts. It's a lot of curls. It's a lot of slants. It's, they're running cover 2 beaters on cover 1 beaters on cover 2. It's, to me, when I look at Kellen Moore's offense, I'm not wowed by it like some people in NFL circles are. I think he's above average, and that'll be an upgrade from what they had last year. But, I look at the Eagles and I say they're probably a 10-win team, but Super Bowl team, no, I don't think so.
It's a lot of talent on that team, which is why I do believe they can win 9 or 10 games. I don't think that's a stretch. I think just for me, it's not a Super Bowl contender just because you add a premium position in Saquon Barkley.